Hello, BookTube. Welcome back. This is Shelf Tour 7, and it's Poetry Shelf number 8. And I start out with a 6-volume set of Chaucer. We saw a volume from this sort of larger set earlier. It's the Aldine Poets, and it's a George Bell and Sons. It's a cheaper edition. But I do like them. They are nice if you can get them in good shape. A bit tarnished on the spine, but I do like the decoration on the cloth and the gold on the front cover and all the decoration. And yeah, when they're in good shape, the paper's still fine. This is 6 volumes, and it is published George Bell and Sons, as I say, 1880. It's edited by Richard Morris, Dr. LLD, member of the Council of the Philological Society, editor of Specimens of Early English, etc., 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 with memoir by Sir Harris Nichols. And this is the revised edition. The Volume 1 is sort of the critical apparatus. There is the Chaucer's pronunciation, his life. So that's Volume 1. Volume 2 then is the Canterbury Tales, and it is the original Middle English, so it's not translated. I have another Canterbury Tales or Chaucer, I believe. I think it's more than Canterbury Tales. It's an old, larger Everyman edition, and I have those sort of together on a shelf way at the other end there. But again, these will be a little bit of poetry. When I'm finished with all the poetry, I'll pull together a little poetry that's in various places and just sort of round it all up. So Volume 3, and that continues, I think, with the Canterbury's Tale. It continues on. Volume 3. It's got, I never looked this up. It's the previous owner's name from 1880. It says J.E.S. Perkins, MP, December 11th, 1880. I know that there was a set that a bookseller bought of an MP one time, set out of his library. So I don't know if this is part of it. I haven't looked this up. But this is, new and revised edition, Volume 4. It just continues with his other poetry, Court of Love, just continued through. And they've not been read. They've not been opened. I got the set really cheap a few years ago. I've read Canterbury Tales before, but I've not read his other, or most of his other poetry. I looked through this as much as I could, without cutting the pages at the moment, but I will get to them. And this just continues his poetry, Troilus and Cressidi. That I've read a long time ago. And Volume 6, a little catalog from Bond's library, which is, or a little leaflet. I like the Bond's library as well. They're nice, but they're hard to get in really good shape. And this just continues with the poetry. And 2 more volumes from the Aldine, and it's the Bell as well, but this is Young. This is Volume 2, I think this is Volume 1. Yeah, the Poetical Works of Edward Young. It's Bell and Daldy, New York. Aldine edition of the British Poets. That's sort of what that, well, let me see if I can do this better. That is sort of what that is, that green set there. Sort of, I think. There's been a few sets, but the Aldine Poets, it's a huge set as well. It's been reprinted so many times. There's leather-bound editions that are nice, that are 60-some volumes, that are thousands of pounds. They're just beautiful, but thousands of pounds. So this is Young, Edward Young, and it's poem and poetry, and 2 volumes. Now we get into a few Everyman, old Everyman libraries. This is sort of the original sort of configuration of them, with the whole spine decorated in gold. There was a time that they went to a different material, and then it just tarnished. It disappeared. So you can get ones that looks like it's been worn off, but it hasn't. It just tarnished. Just age has done that. This is Leaves of Grass in the Everyman edition. It is number... So give me a number of the Everyman. It doesn't. I don't think the early ones did. But it's in the poetry section, which was green. And they each had a sort of saying at the beginning. And this one is, poets are the trumpets which sing to battle. Poets are the unacknowledged legislators of the world. And that's Shelley. And this is early on. This is like in the teens. There's no specific date to it, but it's from the teens, the publication. So that's Leaves of Grass by Walt Whitman. And later, as we go along with Everyman, with a jacket that's tarnished, darkened on the back, it's Ovid Selected Works. 1939. It says it was this edition too. So they went to a time where they didn't have anything on the spine, and they just had that design on the front. So they went through several configurations over time. And here's Walter Delamere, Stories, Essays, and Poems. So I had a choice where to put this, in the fiction section, in the essay section. But because there's poems in it, I've stuck it in the poems. But as I'm looking through here now, there's only a small section at the back that's poems. And this is the same sort of period edition as those. They were a bit smaller as well. This is number 940. And you notice the difference in color. This is actually an essays. So I should rightly put that in my essay collection, which I probably will now, because it's more essays. And yeah, very expensive this was. The green ones are the poetry. Here is English Religious Verse, edited by Ernst Rees. He was the original editor and sort of came up with the name of the Everyman Library. He's the main editor, and this is an anthology compiled by G. Lacey May. It's again the one without the. It would have had a jacket, something like this. And there's, you can see the title page with the symbol on there. And they dispensed with the little poem at the beginning of each one. So this is just a compilation of religious poetry. Here's a bit of an older one where they went to the one with the sort of a shield almost. I think it's called. It's a Ravaloy shield. 1934. Spentley. Not in a bad way, but this is poetry for children. So yeah, and this has this is the fairy gold boy, and 'twill prove so, Shakespeare. Book of Nonsense by Edward Lear with Strumpwell Peter, and other absurdities by various authors. And again, I'm going to put this with, I've called stuff that is sort of children's poetry, so I'm going to add that to the pile. A Wee Little Book of Catullus. It's got Latin and then the English. I like this little volume. I used to carry it around occasionally. Here's one that you can see it's had better days. But again, it was a freebie. It was on a pile. Didn't pay anything for it. Paper's a bit brown. It's second selections for modern poets, made by Sir John Squire. It's the ninth impression, Martin Secker and Warburg, 1941. Reprinted January 41, so it's like 7th or 8th printing. And there's like Edmund Blunden's in here. There's some other ones that are sort of Wilfred Owen, John Middleton Murray. And there's ones that I don't know, so that's why I bought it, because it allows me to discover new poets, and I have in books like this. This is a kind of an oddity. It's beautifully made. A little hardcover. It's like all indented in gold. There's nothing whatsoever in the spine, and the back is blank. I remember at the time, like oddities, I tried to look up, and I don't remember seeing anything about this or who this woman is. I remember at the time, and I've never looked since. But Mrs. Sewell, nicely illustrated on the frontispiece. It's a true story of the past. Author of Mother's Last Words, etc., etc. Gerald and Sons, Paternoster Row. There's no date on it. At least not in the front. Let's see in the back. There's see, the list stuff, popular stories by Mrs. Sewell, but at the time I couldn't find anything. Yeah, it's just a listing of her books. And interesting poems. Nice little book. This is really nice. I like this. It's got a dust jacket. It's Rupert Brooke Selected Poems. And it's got a inscription that I can't really read very well. Happy Moments or something. Looks like 1917. Because this is it can't be. This is 1931 publication, so I'm not sure what the 17 means. Or maybe it's not. Maybe it's an SM or an SH or something. Rupert Brooke, 1915. London, Sedgwick Jackson, 1931. It's not a first printing, I don't think. No, it's like 11th impression, January 31. But I do like his poetry, and not sure where that came from. I was using that as a bookmark when I was reading through. Yeah, Rupert Brooke is really good poet. World War One. This is an interesting set. It's Praed's poems, 2 volumes, Volume 1 and Volume 2. Publisher is. It's Praed's poems, the poems of Winthrop Mackworth Praed, with a memoir by the Reverend Derwent Coleridge, in 2 volumes. Edward Moxon and Company, Dover Street, 1864. Again, it's quite religious. But it's interesting. He does stuff, about King Arthur and so forth. Another thing here, it looks like it's got a interesting, I don't remember, Sir Morgan Lloyd Peel, KBE, owned this, but yeah, I recognize the name. I remember looking it up. Looks like the front free end paper is ripped out, but no, it's not. It's a little Edward Moxon and Company catalog that's put in here, and then there's the front free end paper after that. But it looks like, because it's been peeled off, it's splitting there, so it looks like it is missing something, because it's in the back. The hinges are a bit loose. Yeah, the book plate as well, and that one's done correctly because it doesn't have the catalog in the front. Because, yeah, I've actually purchased a few books one time that had that in it, and the bookseller had said, oh, somebody's tore out the title page and the end papers and that, and just, but it's a catalog that's been put in. So I've been lucky a few times over the years. This is, a lot of people may be familiar with this, Stephen Fry's, the old, less traveled. It's just sort of his how to write poetry. I remembered reading it and I think promptly forgot it, even though I do like Stephen Fry. Now, the last few here are some Penguin New Poets series. These were given to me by 2 years ago, this past September. I was in the hospital for a whole month, and it took me, I'm still not even recovered fully from it. I had cellulitis really, really bad in my left leg, and from a knee down, and it was at a point where it was so bad that they were contemplating amputating because the antibiotics weren't working, but it took a while, so it took a long time. But anyway, while I was recuperating, a Twitter friend sent me a bunch of Penguin poetry books, and this is Malika Brooker, Sharon Olds, just different authors, and if I can get what's the name in Worcestershire. It's a whole series. Dan Patterson, Nick Laird, Kathleen Jamie, Michael Robbins, Patricia Lockwood, Timothy Thornton, Emily Berry and Carson Sophia Collins, Sam Riviere, Frederick Scheidel, and Catherine Maris. They're an interesting thing. Some of the poems I liked. I actually did read all these because they were given as a gift, and I was recovering from that. So I read through all these, and some I didn't like at all, and some I did. So it was a mixed bag, but it was grateful to get. And that's it for shelf 8. Shelf 8. The last shelf on here, shelf 9, is some biography. It's mostly, I think, all biography of poets. So we'll get to that shortly. Thank you very much, BookTube.